Hi, I'm Nancy Hershfield. I am the VP of Philanthropy at PeopleForBikes, as I mentioned last evening. I have been in development work for well over 30 years, starting out as a consultant, and then, well, before that I was in human services and decided no. Moved into fundraising as a consultant, and then eventually spun off into higher education. So I spent many years in higher ed, kind of going up that ladder, and then pandemic, and I decided, I love higher ed, and I think it's important, and I wish everybody had access to a degree in higher education, but I was at the University of Illinois at Chicago. It's a massive organization, a lot of red tape, a lot of ego. So it was sort of like I was looking for something where I could bring my skill set and my experience to the table and really get behind a mission that meant a lot to me. So one day I put myself out there, and I saw this position description at PeopleForBikes, and it's like, I like people, I like bikes, and so I put my hat in the ring and I got it. My role is to build a development program. So PeopleForBikes has a 501c6 and a 501c3 and a 501c4. But the 501c3, it's been in existence for about 16 years, but nothing has really been done with it. So they have done one annual appeal for many years, and that has sort of been the extent of the development program. So when Jen came on board, she decided, we need to ratchet this up and get out there and raise some funds for infrastructure and youth programming and grants. And like Joe was saying yesterday, the need out there is infinite. And so those are kind of the three areas that I really want to focus my attention on as I'm building out the foundation board and the development program. So, but I'm going to start with, I have all these terms up here. Overall, I like to consider it to be an engagement program. It includes philanthropy, advancement, development, fundraising, volunteerism, membership, and I'm going to go through the definitions briefly about that. And please stop me at any point if you have a question, or if you want to wait to the end, that's fine too. So sometimes these terms are philanthropy, advancement, development, fundraising are intermingled and confused. But the first one that I want to talk about is philanthropy. It's really helping organizations or individuals by giving of your own financial resources. It's that simple. Advancement is exactly what it says. It's advancing the cause or the plan or the vision of an organization. And usually it is through a strategic plan or some kind of annual plan or both. So it's just making sure that we're staying on track and moving forward. Development is actually the program and the processes that we build out to raise the funds for the organization. So it's everything from annual giving to major gifts to planned gifts to stewardship to donor relations. There's all these different segments under the umbrella of advancement or development. Fundraising is actually going out and cultivating relationships and asking for money. So it's pretty basic. Volunteerism. So volunteerism, it's really important in this equation because that's often people's entry or entree to an organization and supporting something that they're passionate about. So, it's just really people's desire to give back to their community or to an organization or for a cause or whatever is important to them. And then membership. Well, I'll get into each of these as we go along, but membership is just joining, it's being a part of something that you believe in, that you want to support. Sometimes membership requires a financial commitment. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's all because you believe in the cause, and members usually receive benefits for becoming members of an organization. So I wanted to give you a little background on, I don't know if, hopefully nobody did this before, but like, where do contributions come from in the United States and where do they go? Just to give you sort of a sense for what's going on out there. So in 2021, according to Giving USA, which is a great organization, if you have not tapped into them, it's worth, if you're doing fundraising for your organization, it's worth tapping into that Giving USA as a resource. But according to them, in 2021, we raised $485 billion philanthropic dollars that went to nonprofit causes overall. They count these four primary buckets. They don't really count government grants because government grants are not philanthropic gifts. So these are just gifts that are tax deductible in accordance with the law. So the four are corporations, foundations, bequests, and individuals. And as you can see, individuals give by far and away the most money philanthropically annually. And that's historically the case. It's funny because if you know somebody or you've met somebody who doesn't know development work that much, they always, let's go after the Gates Foundation or the big corporations, and no, they give, but they don't give. As you can see, corporations are about 4%. So except for Santa Cruz, but so anyway, individuals by far and away give the most in contributions. Foundations, and these are like family foundations primarily. So like the Walton Family Foundation or something like that, and a lot of smaller foundations. And then bequests are people putting you in their will or their estate plans, and so that 9% represents people that died and left their left money.
Dead people give more than corporations. Yep.
Dead people give more than corporations. Correct. Yes. And there's more out there for future dead people than we have tapped into. So absolutely. This is where the money goes. By far and away, religious organizations, that's, again, historically always been the case. And it makes sense. People get connected and attached to their churches or their synagogues or whatever. And so that is where the money goes primarily. But as you can see, there's all kinds of other areas like public benefit and health and human services, grant makers. So for instance, like a lot of arts organizations and organizations that serve children might re-grant dollars out to smaller organizations, and a lot of larger foundations like to give them money to re-grant out to smaller organizations because they don't have the time or the resources or the wherewithal to know what all those organizations, it's like a United Way kind of concept. So anyway, that's kind of where it goes. And the reason I point this out, I think it's just important to kind of have this in the back of your mind. So as you're approaching individuals or foundations or corporations or whatever, you're mindful of what their priorities are and how you can customize your request to fit their priorities. Unless you can't, I mean, then just walk away. But like if you know that they support environmental stuff, and bicycling, of course, is big about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions reductions and stuff. If your request can align with that and they have that interest, then focus on that. So anyway, just to give you a sense.
Are you suggesting though that your organization isn't fitting into one of these recipient types, but you're into multiple types?
I think bicycling does fit into multiple. I think it fits into environment, health and well-being, human services, because it's mental health as well. I think there's a public benefit to it because it builds community. So I do think that there's ways to customize your requests to fit a number of these categories. Education, can fit in there. Probably not religion so much. I don't know.
That's church.
All right, yeah, there you go. Writing for God. So what are the basic principles of a healthy engagement and development program? For me, I kind of made this up. So anyway, the first principle to me is that you need to build a strong culture of philanthropy within your organization. And what does that mean? So a culture is, it just refers to the personality or the attitude of an organization. A culture of philanthropy means that everyone within your organization, staff, board members, volunteers, they embrace the idea of philanthropy. They see it as a beautiful thing where people are aligning their passion with the need of the organization, and it's all good. And you're not begging for money, you're asking for something to support a worthy cause. It's not like I go and get the money and put it in my pocket and go to the Bahamas. I mean, I don't. So it's important to kind of be mindful of the culture of philanthropy, that it's a gift, and it's offering people the opportunity to give a gift to support something that's really important to them and make a difference in this world. First and foremost, I always believe that with everything, you start in the center, the epicenter. For nonprofit organizations, that's the board. And then, the executives on your staff, and then volunteers and whatnot, it ripples out. When you want to build a culture of philanthropy, you really need to start with your board and make sure that everybody on that board is giving to the organization to the best of their ability. I always say we are not created equally in philanthropy, so I am not going to go out and be giving anybody $1 million anytime soon. But I can stretch myself, and if I'm serving on a board, that board should be in the top 3 of my philanthropic priorities. It just should be. And I should do the best I can to stretch myself and give to that organization. This is also important when you go out and apply for grants. Lots of grant applications ask, does your board support this? How many on your board give? How much do they give? And if you can say 100% of our board support this, it doesn't matter the amount so much as they all have contributed. That strengthens your grant application significantly. Principle 2, be donor, volunteer, and member centered. So we get caught up sometimes in when we create communications or appeals or whatever. It's like, we need this, we need that, woe is us, we don't have any money for anything. And it's so easy to do because it's true. But what people want to know, what donors want to know, what volunteers want to know, what members want to know is, what's my impact? What if I give you money, what's going to happen with that, and so what? And so I think so what is a good question to always ask yourself when you're creating an appeal or a communication, or you're sitting down with somebody. Why should this matter to this person? And just really think that through. Be externally focused and not internally focused. What we really want to do with all these groups, donors, volunteers, and members, is align their mission or their passion, like what's important to them, with what the organization needs. So yeah, we have needs and we have to fulfill those needs, but we want to find the right people to fulfill those and find out what's really important to them to make sure that clicks. And that way you're going to also make sure that you, like with donors, you're not going to leave money on the table. With volunteers, you're not going to lose them. So as long as you have that personal connection and really know what drives people. On average, like for a donation for a major gift, it takes about 12 to 24 months for a current donor of any level to become a major gift donor. Major gift is defined differently for different organizations. Some it's $1,000 as a major gift, some it's $25,000, some it's $100,000. whatever your level is, just know that it takes time to cultivate those relationships and get people from point A to point Z. Well, that's not Z. Z is the planned gift before they die. So another important thing to keep in mind too is not to be donor-led, volunteer-led, member-led. You don't want the tail wagging the dog. So I've been in so many situations where a donor will come, I'll give you $1 million if you start this program, or if you create this, or what, and it's like totally off the charts of the mission or the focus or whatever of the organization. And, you know, the dean of the college, I use that because I was in higher ed, oh yeah, let's do that. Well, you know, 90% of the time it ends up costing more money than you got in the gift, because you have to hire the staff, you have to create the program, you have to, you know, it's you have to be really careful, really careful, and assess whether or not you're going to get a good ROI on that gift. So sometimes you have to let them go. Sometimes the volunteer is not going to do the work, or they're not interested, or they don't show up. Sometimes the donor, you know, is really pushing for something that you just can't make fit into your mission or vision, and it's just like, you know, okay, love you, bye-bye. You know, it's okay. And it's hard to let people go, but sometimes you just need to. And then just remember to sink your time and energy and resources into those who really do want to be a part of what you already have planned and what you're already moving forward. Principle 3 is just viewing fundraising and engagement, like volunteer membership. It's relational and it's emotional. It's really emotional. It's not transactional. Think of the things that are important to you and that you want to give to and that you're passionate about. It's emotional. I'll tell you a story about, so there's a training called the Art and Science of Donor Development. And if you ever have the opportunity, it's phenomenal. And I went through it, I don't know how many years ago, but one of the things they taught in that training was when you meet with a donor, ask them, what would you like to accomplish with your money that's meaningful to you? Not what do you want to do with your money? What do you want to accomplish? And then start on the active listing trail, you know. So I met with Ed and Evelyn Cruz, who owned Bluebell Ice Cream down in Texas. And when I was living down there, I was working at Texas Lutheran University. Neither of them had gone to Texas Lutheran University. Ed had served on the board for many years. They had 2 granddaughters who went there. And Ed called me one day and he said, I'd like to make a gift in honor of my granddaughters. I'm like, cool, I'll hop over and have ice cream. So so I did. I drove over, we met, and he had his wife, Evelyn, with us. We got some ice cream, and then we went into the office and started having a conversation. That was the first question I asked them. I said, you know, what would you like to accomplish with your money that's meaningful to you? And it was the coolest. Ed just kind of went, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I said, well, what is it? And so Evelyn said, well, for me, it's education. And he said, well, for me, it's the, you know. So I started for about 20 minutes, we had a conversation. I said, well, tell me more about that. So what's important to you about that? How does that connect to your life? You know, just what and how questions, just probing questions. And about 20 minutes later, Evelyn was in tears and Ed had teary eyes, and they came down to this guy who they knew in high school, who was his coach and her biology teacher. And he made such an impact on their lives and then he went on eventually to become a minister. He made such a huge impact on their lives that they were just moved by him and what he as a teacher and a pastor could do and to change people's lives. So they said, you know, I think we want to start a scholarship for people who are training to be teachers and for pre-seminary. And it's like, cool, I'll go back, I'll come up with a couple proposals, we can talk about it, we'll walk through this together. Great. And then I'm, you know, like, by the way, how much are you talking about? And he's like, well, we were thinking, you know, like 250, 300,000. I'm like, cool. So I come back with the proposals. They loved it so much, and it meant so much to them that they wanted to create this scholarship in this coach's name, and they gave $1.6 million to start it. This isn't unusual. These don't happen all the time. But anyway, it was $1.6 million to start. And in Ed's words, we'll give you $500,000 a year for as long as we're able to build that out. The point being, it was an emotional experience for them. It got to their heart. And people give to cancer, because somebody in their family died of it. People give to bicycling because their life was changed because of it. I mean, it's an emotional thing, and to get to that emotional place with people is going to help you make sure that you do not leave money on the table. They're going to want to make that legacy gift to you. So just pointing that out. Principle 4, engaging and energizing your volunteers. There's, again, like I said before, it's volunteers. I mean, volunteerism is like the entree into giving to an organization. So really look for opportunities for your volunteers to have meaningful work within your organization. The other thing, too, is if you have volunteer board members or committee members, use them. Use them to open doors, to make introductions, to tell the story. In fundraising, I really believe that 90% of fundraising is relationship building. So your board members and your committee members can really help with that because they have the relationships and the network. 9% telling the story. They can also help with that. They can sit down and tell the people across the table why they're involved, why it's so important, how it changed their life. And then 1% ask. That's my job. So when people say, I don't want to do fundraising, I try to say, really your role is to open the door, tell the story. I'll do the rest. And that puts people at ease, really at ease. And lots of people like to tell the story. So that's the fun part. So what about those volunteers? Here's some volunteer statistics. These are just a few out of many, 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 but I thought some of these were quite interesting. So, 1 out of 4 Americans are, volunteer. Baby boomers are the most likely to volunteer. Take advantage of them. They're retiring. They're on their way to retirement. They're going to have time, and they also have a boatload of experience and expertise that they can bring to the table. The average volunteer is worth $28.54 an hour, because most volunteers are people who really do have a skill set and they can bring that to the table. Also worth $184 billion a year in terms of volunteer hours spent. Volunteers are way more likely to contribute to any charity than non-volunteers, and 66% more likely to donate to your charity if they're involved with your charity. Also, volunteers really love to support the things that they care about. Volunteerism is good for you. It has been shown to reduce blood pressure by 40%. It boosts morale within companies. It enriches their life and gives volunteers a sense of purpose. And these are all based on report at Volunteer Hub. You can go there. Sad news is COVID. As a result of COVID, 11% of volunteer organizations in the U.S. shut down and were unable to operate anymore because they were dependent primarily on volunteerism. The good news is there's a bunch of volunteers out there looking for a place to go. So you can tap into those people who were in those organizations and no longer. And this is where volunteers like to put their time and talent. Health and wellness is second. That's awesome for us. Environment and conservation, 7%. Human and social services, that's good. Women and girls is down there, but it's coming up in the bicycle world, so not something to sneeze at either. And what are the basic components of a healthy volunteer program? So first of all, assumptions. Like, just check your assumptions about your volunteers. We all have them. I have them. But before you engage your volunteers and motivate them, think about the value that they bring to your organization. Like, they really are like money in the bank if they're good. Volunteers they're not free labor, and they are not low skilled. So those assumptions really should be set aside. In terms of the program, it's important to build an engagement program, volunteer engagement program. It doesn't have to be, intense or complicated or anything, but just some basic things like a position description for your volunteers, a list of opportunity. Here's ways you can get involved. Here's how we're gonna recognize you. We're gonna have an annual volunteer picnic or whatever. Just something, a sketch of a volunteer program that is on paper or electronics that they can look at. Really important to make people feel like you have a sense of, that you're organized around it. And it gives them a sense of purpose as well. So show your appreciation. Always treat your volunteers like they are major donors, because they are. And you'll keep them longer. They'll stick around. They'll work for you longer. If you're having an issue with them, have a conversation. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. But if it is a good fit, you don't want to lose them. So thank them, send them notes, send them articles, invite them to an event, whatever it takes. Just make sure that they recognize them at an event, to have them stand up. It doesn't have to cost you anything really to show your appreciation, but it goes a long way. Seek out and listen to their feedback. Sometimes we don't really want their feedback, but it's really important to ask them for their feedback, whether or not you use what they give you because of budgets or personnel resources or whatever. You don't have to use their ideas, but sometimes you get a good idea, and if you can implement it, show them that you can and you do, and make it happen. Again, a lot of volunteers are very smart people who have got a ton of experience, and they bring that to the table, and they really want to be a part of what you're doing because they're passionate about it. And then finally, cultivate your volunteers for greater engagement. So what do I mean by that? Somebody could come in your door and stuff envelopes, and eventually you learn, oh my gosh, they were an expert in this field. So they become an advisor, and then they hop on your board, and then they become a staff member. And, so those things happen. It's just part of the process is to really cultivate those relationships and know who those volunteers are, what trips their trigger. And principle 5 is building your network and your membership. So how many of you have membership in your organizations? Okay, cool. So one thing that often happens is we assume that, if you're my friend or you're my family, you're going to love what I love just because I love it. And you're going to want to be involved, and you're going to want to help out. And it doesn't always work that way. However, your friends and your family can connect you with people who do know or are interested in your work and want to be a part of it. They can introduce you to new people. Your board members, your committee members, your volunteers, other members can introduce you to other people, and that's how networks are built. It's not magic. You have to do the legwork and reach out to people and get to know them and see whether or not they're a good fit. It's just really basic. So just use your board members and your committee members and your volunteers to expand your network. And that will be helpful for you. So what are the basic components of a healthy membership program? So several of you have membership programs. These are kind of 4 typical types of memberships. So nonprofit memberships. So trade associations, People for Bikes has a trade association. It's our 501c6. And so companies make their pay their membership dues, and in exchange, People for Bikes does advocacy work and lobbying and data collection and whatnot that we then share with our members, and they have access to resources. Members as donors. Example might be when I lived in Chicago, we were a member of the Art Institute. So as a member of the Art Institute, I could bring a friend along for free, and I could get a glass of wine every time I went there. And little member benefits. Get into the exhibits early before everybody else, those types of things. So members as consumers. So this is really I have a note here. It's really more about building community than it is about fundraising. So like people are members of your organization because they believe in you and they believe in your cause and they want to be a part of it. You may not even charge a membership fee. Anybody can become a member, or you may charge something, or there might be varying levels. But they consume your product or your program, and they become members to be a part of that. And then advocates is what it says. I mean, these are people who want to get in front of the legislators and advocate on behalf of an organization or an area of work or whatever. And they can advocate not just politically, but that's just another membership category. So in a membership program, I'm sure you all have much more sophisticated membership programs, but these are just some of the very basics. So we always have a welcome program. So with our members, and we try to find ways to always improve it too. So just this year, we implemented an onboarding webinar. So if you become a new member of People for Bikes, especially with the coalition or the trade association, there are two or three times during the year that you can hop online and join the webinar. And it's just a real immersive experience to learn about People for Bikes, what we do, what the benefits are of being a member. Also a welcome packet, anything like that is just going to help people feel like you want them there. You want them to be a part of your community. Build a case statement, a case for support. So you do this for donors, like what is the impact of your gift to this organization? What does it do? Who does it help? A case statement for membership is the exact same thing. It's like, what does your membership do? Who does it impact? Why is your membership important? And people want to know that. And it's just, again, it's externally facing instead of internally facing. So if you have the budget for it, dedicating staff and software to this, somebody or some system that can track every engagement that you've had with every volunteer, everything that they've attended or come to, or whatever they've done, that it's all entered in a system somewhere. Even if it's a spreadsheet, if that's all you got, that's all you got. But what we say in development world is, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So really important to kind of track on that, and also helps you customize your communications with people as well. So, and then offer great benefits. Like, again, doesn't have to be monetary, but it can. One thing I learned in higher ed was we conducted many surveys with many alumni. And what they always said consistently, what was most important to them was being connected. So they didn't want to have stuff and necessarily come to events or whatever, but they wanted to have this sense of connection. They wanted to sort of be on the inner circle of information. And so find ways to give them something for nothing, a newsletter, a bike ride with your executive director or a board member or something like that. Those things don't cost anything, and it makes them feel really special. And then communicate clearly and consistently, like be real clear about what the expectations are, when their membership dues are due, what they get for being a member, what is expected of them as a member. People want clarity about, their role within an organization, no matter what it is. So this is just continued. You like with donors, like with volunteers, you want to cultivate those relationships. Listen and respond to them. Again, you can't do everything every member suggests, but you can say, I heard you. Let me see what I can do about that. Or I don't have that budget. How can we get the budget for it, or whatever? But listen and make sure that you respond, even if it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes. Again, show your appreciation, encourage deeper connections. So, like if they're a member, encourage them to become a volunteer, encourage them to become a donor, because just because they pay a membership due doesn't mean that they can't also donate to an organization. And then engage your members to expand your membership. Again, just like with donors, just like with volunteers, ask them who they know. I rarely leave a meeting with a donor without first asking, who else should I be talking to? That's the question I leave them with. And most times people come up with at least one person. Sometimes they come up with a list, and that's really helpful. And then I ask them, will you introduce me? Will you give me a virtual introduction? So you gotta follow up with that. So this is just a little comparison. As you see, whether it's development, fundraising, volunteerism, membership, it's basically the same. We need to set clear expectations for people, no matter what their role is. People need to know. When I got to PeopleForBikes, there was no position description for our board members. And it's like, well, how are they supposed to know? So I created a board description for them, the expectations we have of them. They give every year, they attend the meetings, they do this, they do that, and here's what we do in exchange for that. Cultivation, like everybody wants to be cultivated, everybody wants to be loved. So whether you're a donor or a volunteer or a member, figure out how you can cultivate those relationships. They'll have slightly different nuances, but it's just showing them the love and appreciation, that thanking, recognizing. Put it in your annual report. Put it on your website. I don't know. You'll figure out ways to do it that are cheap or no cost at all, that makes them feel really appreciated, really noticed. And then connection. By that I mean, like, take advantage of your donors, your volunteers, your members to expand your network, to really get out there and grow each of those categories for your organization. They're the ones that can do it for you. So, and they want to. Otherwise they wouldn't be involved. So that's it. Questions? Conversation? Thoughts?
So we've been having conversations about the membership versus support. And for us, the challenge is we can ask you to be a member at 35, 60, 100, or we can ask you to be a donor, and that becomes your choice more than anything. And what we're also finding is it's a confusing process, at least the way we've got it set up, and that's partially just an operational thing on our end, but it's also a communication thing, being the person that has to communicate to you that I'd love for you to become a member of our organization, right? But to the rest of you, I want you also to be part of it. It's not an exclusive place, right? That's the other challenge, right? The whole, being inclusive, when you attach the term membership to it, it makes it exclusive.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that's the conversation that I think there's a real shift in our organization to lean more towards the supporter side and call it supporter, become the supporter, have that one channel that you get into access. And I really like Matt, I think you guys said just the monthly way is the only way to go. One thing I've been really successful at is building our recurring membership program. We've got 40% of our members, which is a huge number.
That's huge. Yeah.
40% of our members have an annual renewal.
That's awesome.
It's not as huge as you. You're 100%, yes. But that, it's a big challenge. But that's been a conversation for us. I'm curious if anybody else has had a conversation or thought on that, as far as, is the term membership the wrong term? And does it prevent or create confusion?
So, I've been with Bike Houston for 2 years, and when I came on board, we had a set membership fee at $40 a year, or you could sign up at $25, and they called it biking on a budget, and I wasn't a big fan of that. And so what we ended up doing was following the lead of a few other organizations around the country, and we dropped membership down to a minimum of $5, which basically just covers like credit card fees and barely anything else. And sure enough, we realized it grew the number of members, but then it became more work to maintain both the membership program and the perks that were expected from that, and having this other ask, at the end of the year, or Giving Tuesday, or during Bike Month, for a donation. And even my own board members, they would cut a check and they would say, I want this to go towards my membership, and I'll give a gift during the summit. And our bookkeeper and our treasurer and myself, we just had this conversation where we realized if we're confused, then the public is confused, and it doesn't make sense. So what we ended up doing is making membership free, because what we really want is the biggest number possible. And our big list, our full email list, is over 12,000. So if we can tell a city council member, we have 12,000 members, it doesn't mean they all give. About 10% of them give, but we have other people who give their time. They come to rides, they come to other events, they speak at city council. So there's a different level of engagement, and membership doesn't just mean you give $5 a month anymore. It means so many different things.
So what does the free membership mean? Sorry to interrupt. So what does the free membership mean? Is there a benefit attached to it, or is it just more of basically a different version of signing up for your newsletter?
It's basically being a subscriber to our newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah. They find out about events, that the ways that no one else will.
And to your point, it kind of depends on what you as an organization, like what's going to benefit you the most. And if saying we've got 1,000 members is really important to you and is going to help you in other ways, then that's great. If it's not, then being really, really clear about what membership means and being really clear about what being a donor means. So like my previous example, the Chicago Art Institute, we were members, which we pay, I don't know how much a year to be members, but we also were donors to the organization. They solicited us, part because we were members. We were on their radar then.
Can I ask a question to the group at large, and maybe a little bit into governance? Are your members voting members for your board and in your elections?
No.
No.
For us, it's a numbers game. And that's the other challenge I've got, is we've got our primary membership, right? Which is, you wrote the check, you're the primary member, that's one. You've got 3 kids and a wife, that's 4 more, right? So there's 5 memberships, but I got my primary membership number and I got my total membership number. And when we do a campaign of some sort to raise the membership numbers, you don't sign up again, I lose 5 people. You sign up, but I only gain 1, right? Versus 1-to-1. And so it's an operational thing, but it all comes down to this confusion and what's valuable, which number. So just, curious how other people are operating.
I've got a point, but I think Chris was going to say something.
I was just going to say, to keep it inclusive, can you follow that as a Patreon style tiered membership? So you can have a free level with no benefits other than you get their email address and it's a number you can give out when you need a big number. And then you have, I don't know, however many tiers of membership with increasing benefits, depending on what people feel either they want to get engaged in or they can afford to give. So you don't just have one option. So you don't push anyone out because it's like, well, I can't afford that. But people engage at the level that they're comfortable engaging.
Yeah, I think we can. I think it still comes back to sort of what you sort of nailed it too. The value versus the cost and effort associated with maintaining all those different levels.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're just a supporter, you assign a title to certain levels,
Yeah.
and some people want to achieve those levels. They want to be, I want to be a gold digger. It's like, sweet, give $10,000, you're a gold digger,
Yeah.
right? You know, cool. I got the name. I'm
Yeah.
on the list, and that's all they want. Whereas, you know, if we don't send a sticker to somebody for the $35 donation, they get pissed, and then they won't sign up again. It's like because of a sticker. It's like they just rode 200 miles of trail out of their backyard, but they want a sticker. So it's definitely possible.
I think having like sports, for us it's always been important to have an audience. So actually just being able to communicate with people and actually, getting all the messages and, be it that, thing like, maybe this crowd is open or anything like that. And, the more people you can communicate, the better. So we've gone down the sport route. And I really like the idea of actually having that. Ours go off trail grading, so you have, green, blue, red and black level, and the black tends to be corporate, but actually having that one below would be quite good actually.
Yeah.
Colour that.
There's heaps of education.
Multi-user trail.
Yeah, there's heaps of education on the Patreon site as well to help create those tiers and structure it so you can push people where you want them to go. It's pretty well done.
There's ways because you have to then still pay a fee, don't you?
Yeah, but you don't necessarily need to use Patreon, but you can use the site and you can use their educational materials.
You guys make a distinction between organizational memberships and sponsorships, donations?
That was been a challenge. We had a business membership for a little while, which means we just, charge Joe $250 and you $35. And
Your shop,
you
your
didn't
local shop could
necessarily-
join.
Didn't necessarily get much out of it, other than your business, became a business member. We dropped that. So yeah, we identify organizational, contacts within our donor base, but we don't have a membership.
And it's different
So-
for different for us, sponsorship is if we have a big event, we will ask people to sponsor the event, and their name will be plastered everywhere, and they'll get a lot of visibility in exchange for that. But that money actually helps offset the costs of the event, and so that's a very very specific thing that it goes to as a sponsorship. But then a donation would be totally different. A membership would be totally different. So.
How do you give that sort of equal recognition to donors? One of the challenges that we had in the Volunteers Association is the big donors were getting recognition. There was maybe something put out on social media, but actually there was so many small businesses like coaching organisations, mountain bike, guiding companies and so on, local businesses, but they weren't getting that recognition as well. How can you get that fine balance between making sure that everybody's valued and appreciated for what they're giving back?
Yeah, it's not easy, and as I said, when it comes to philanthropy, we're not all created equal, and that's not just individuals, but businesses as well, and foundations and whatnot. You can decide that for yourself as an organization. But going back to the membership piece, you don't want to. You want to have the return on investment make sense for your organization. So you don't want to use too many more human resources than you can afford to maintain the benefits that you offer people, and yet you want them to feel warm and fuzzy, so some organizations have a sliding scale, like depending on the size of your business. If you give $1,000, you are a major donor. If you give $100,000, you are a major donor, depending on the size of your organization. So you can look at something like that as an option. So people who are really stretching themselves to give at a higher level, no matter the size of their organization, they still are getting that higher level benefit and so on.
Nancy, I'm curious where you see the most leverage here, because I think a lot of times membership, you think of okay, we have a Santa Cruz bike, can we give them a hat and some swag? And so it's more of a tactical product thing. But to your point, most of the reason that people are members and donors is the emotional side. So how is that something, where's the balance there? Does that make more of a difference to say actually the thing that a membership should give is like that communication or the wine, like where
For me, yes.
some wine.
Yeah, that's my first question. Okay, do I get wine with that membership? So, no. So are you asking?
I think it's what is the product of the membership? Is it the emotion or is it kind of the perks?
Well, that's a really good question. So, like, if your lines are being blurred between donors and members, then that's where I would consider maybe we just have a donor, we just have donations, and you make a contribution to this art, and we have different levels, and for different levels of gain, you get the newsletter and you get this and you get that, and then dump the membership piece, because it can be really blurry. If I had to choose, I would between membership and donations, I would go with the donations. With the fundraising piece, it elicits a different response in people than membership. So when I give to something, it's like they want stuff in return, not necessarily stuff, but like they want access, but they don't expect it, like with the membership. It's a nuance. You understand what I'm saying? So, and I want people to give to our organization because it's important to them, because it's important to the world, because they're passionate about it, because, not because they're going to get some. So that would be my leaning. Am I answering your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I think it's like easy to go down that road of like the value that I provide is like access to this or a product or whatever, where like I can also provide value in a way of I'm doing the work that you want me to do in the best way possible.
Totally. Yeah.
Is it like emotional to get people in, but then maybe the perks keep them there? Like, because you got that glass of wine, are you going to continue?
Welcome to a bottle, but no.
Like, does that
It
help
doesn't.
keep them around?
It doesn't.
Okay, so it still really is just the emotional.
That's the main
connection.
thing. Yeah, the studies have shown it.
Yeah.
You can give them all kinds of stuff, and people don't. In fact, a lot of volunteers, a lot of donors, we give people the option. Do you want the appreciation sweatshirt or whatever? And a lot of people say, no, I don't keep the money. I don't want it. I want all my money to go to what you're doing. So yeah.
We put out an explainer when we got rid of the cost of membership, because there are some people who still say like, I want to renew my membership, and I said, if you're getting our email still, you're a member. And they're like, well, I want to give, and like, sure, we have a link for that, please do. But one of the key differences for us was, like you said, you went to the Art Institute, and that got you into the Art Institute, and then there was wine involved too. But nobody has, you may, but we don't have bike lanes that you can't ride on unless you're a Bike Houston member, and of course not. Like the bike system, the bike network, the trails are free to use, and we're kind of likening our membership sort of like being a member of having a library card. Like the library is free to use. It's a public good, just like the streets and the trails are a public good. So you subscribe once and you remember forever, so long as you maintain your subscription to our newsletters. Because we realized also, like, we're not giving something like that access into the museum. Like, I'm a member of the Houston Zoo and of the Museum of Fine Arts, so we pay that every year so we can get in and bring visitors. But you don't have to pay to use the bike trails, so you shouldn't have to pay.
It's interesting, but I could tell you that on our revenue side, it's all membership dollars. And I can't just flip a switch and ask these people to donate without anticipating a big hit or an impact on that. So that, I don't know.
So they
I understand the appeal of that, but it's a scary proposition to sort of say, well, we're just going to ask everyone to make donations from now.
Yeah.
That's why it's so
keep your
important.
fingers crossed that they're going to do that.
Yeah,
And we
for
can
us,
count on recurring memberships every year to basically fund us.
Yeah, we were bringing in the vast majority of individual contributions, not in terms of numbers, but the amount was coming in from donations. Like our end of year campaign was by far the most that we brought in, say 50,000. And our bike summit in May, which is an event and also like a month-long giving with a match usually, also brings in a lot of donations. But memberships over the course of the year was a fraction of what that total was. So it was easy enough for us to say, please continue to give. This is how to give. But membership is now free because you weren't getting much out of being a member besides just being able to say you're a member.
Another thing to consider too is your audience. So for People for Bikes, we have the membership, which is for the industry. It's it's the bicycle industry. And then the foundation side, the donations, that's for individuals and individual foundations. So if you have different constituencies that you can do different things with, that's one way to approach it as well.
I just presented this to our board at a retreat a week or two ago, and it sort of speaks to what Ellie was talking about. And the three things I put to him is like, how do we simplify the process for the member donor? How do we maximize the value, right? What is the value of a membership versus a donation or whatever? And then how do we increase the need, right? Why do I need to become a member? Why is this important? What do I get as a member or supporter that I wouldn't get otherwise? And so creating those opportunities, creating a small bit of swag or something like that, but the opportunities I think are the bigger thing, like that somewhat exclusive access to things, whether that's just an invite or
absolutely. Yeah, and you can even put it in your list. You'll be invited to. It doesn't even have to be like they don't need to come for free. You're just invited. So
you guys have the team, right?
Yeah, we have weekly rides.
Yeah,
you need to be a member.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's such a simple thing.
You're gonna ride anyway. Might as well have some people tagging along, right?
Weekly race. It's like if you want to race, it's $15, but only if you're a member first, or a supporter, or whatever you call it.
There you go.
And
exactly.
It just blows them up.
Do you turn people away if they show up and they want to ride, but they're
So
not?
they can't register unless they're a member through our system.
So they have to register in advance.
Absolutely, yeah, and it has to. Yeah, we have. Yeah, so we like. It sounds like it's quite different for different organisations, but membership is really key for us. And then the donation side is on top of that. And some of those donations come from the members, like a lot, but out a lot, and then some comes from outside. But for us, it's a lot of the locals are all members. People visiting tends to be more donations. So
that makes sense.
Something that I want to know also, if Matt covered this, I work for Santa Cruz Mountain Trail Stewardship as well. I think membership is key, and if you don't have a membership program, it's really important because, like you mentioned, it takes a year to 2 years to get a gift out of someone. So when you have someone in as a member, they're getting correspondence from you. And if you have it set up correctly, it looks like it's coming from an individual. And so you're building that relationship, and it's super easy. It's just a monthly email. Maybe it's a quarterly email. So your donor or your member is getting that, and then that might lead into a bigger donation down the road. So I think that making sure that there's like a small financial gift in the beginning is great too, because you get data on that person. So if you're using tools, you might be able to see, wow, this person has the potential to make a $200,000 gift eventually. So I should be pouring more resources into this individual. So I think that membership is really important in that sense. And then going back to business membership, we started a business membership program 2 years ago, and it acts as the same thing. So business members get treated extra special. We put their logo up on a special card on our website, and then we do a couple other small touch points. It's a really easy program, but what it does is it gets businesses in the door that don't necessarily have the funding to be a full-fledged sponsor. And then we can grow relationships with the other people that might down the road become a title sponsor of something. And so again, it goes back to relationship building. And I think that membership and business membership is the key.
I think for memberships, what works for me as an end user, what works for me is the recurring payment membership. So like when I moved up to Portland, I joined the Northwest Trail Alliance, and you get some good benefits because you get to go ride Rocky Point, which is a private property area that only Northwest Trail Alliance members are supposed to be able to ride. Nobody polices it, it doesn't really matter. But that was part of the idea, is like now you can go ride Rocky Point. Now that isn't something that everybody has access to. But like the recurring payment, I don't even think about it. It's like $100 a year. It comes out of my thing, and then I'll do donations outside of that because I don't even think that I'm already paying money because it's already at my bank account. I'm not even looking at it. I'm terrible at looking at like what goes out every month because it's so much. And that one works so well for me because then you almost stop paying attention to it, and then anytime you're donating, you've already forgotten that you've already given $100. You're actually donating on top of that pretty regularly.
I've gotten pretty good at getting people to set multiple recurring donations, so
it's really smart.
It's a great, especially in the same month. I forget, every September we have a membership campaign, and that's been the push for the last 3 years is boost your membership, and set recurring and get people that'll do it on the 15th of one month and the 23rd on the next month because they forgot that they did it. And pretty soon I'm calling them. Figure it out.
One of the first questions we got asked by our local government when we proposed the project, and we were actually fighting that they were going to level our trails and put in a fence center, so we rallied the community, and they were like, how many members do you have? And at that point we had like 180. Do you think that conversation would have been different if you said we have 180 supporters? Do you guys feel that one would outweigh the other? I'm asking, I'm not sure. I would think that the membership term would be more valid to the local administration.
Well,
Part two to that is, when we say member, the next question is, how many vote in our district? So whether you have 12,000 versus 180 to that, city council member, they only cared about the people who were in their district. Yes, they want outside revenue to come into their town and all of that. But their first responsibility, and they've said this to us over and over, is fiduciary responsibility to my constituents, right? So I'm trying to navigate in my head, do we want to make a change? Is this more valuable than the other? I can't quite weigh which one would have a more powerful impact to that city council person in that scenario. Does anyone have any?
That's the question that we have asked too, and our executive director, she uses our membership number and our membership term quite a bit in that sense. I think, personally, the supporter, you have to take the extra step to say, we've got 2,000 people that financially support our organization and are behind us. I mean, it's the same as membership, it just takes more work.
Yeah, I would combine the two, or just, call them supporters. Doesn't matter if they're members or if they're donors.
Because you guys have to deal with that kind of from a policy perspective as well. Like if you're advocating for a bill, how does that kind of translate to companies and trade organizations?
Yeah, you mean in terms of members versus donors?
Well, just like if whoever, like a policymaker, is like, well, how many people are riding bikes on our district?
Yeah, or we can tell them how many people are in our database and have supported us as volunteers or donors or members. I mean, we just bunch them all together and say, we've got 1.5 million supporters of People for Bikes and the work that we do. And wow, that's a lot.